Hey everyone, welcome back to Fluent Vibes Podcast, your daily English practice podcast. I'm Amy.
And I'm Sam. Thanks for being here today. If you're new, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our daily episodes. We post a brand new conversation on books, life lessons, English tips, and many more every single day so that you may improve your English. Let me ask you something honestly. When was the last time you checked your phone? Was it, 5 minutes ago? 1 minute ago? Or maybe right before joining this deep dive?
It's a slightly uncomfortable question, isn't it? Because, well, if you look around you right now, whether you're sitting on a bus or waiting in a coffee shop or even sitting right across from someone at a dinner table, what does almost everyone have in their hands?
A smartphone. It is always a smartphone. And look, we have to start by acknowledging that these devices are genuinely miraculous. They let us learn new skills on a commute, work from virtually anywhere, connect with family across the globe, and, access the sum total of human knowledge in seconds.
Right, they're incredible tools.
They really are. But our mission today is to look at the shadows behind that glowing screen. Because we're looking at notes on this concept called the invisible habit. And there's a really uncomfortable truth we need to confront here. Most people don't use smartphones anymore. Smartphones use them.
Exactly. We're looking at a fundamental shift in human behavior. It's not just about, spending a little too much time staring at a screen. It is about how our biology is actively being hijacked.
Hijacked, wow.
Yeah, literally hijacked. Today, we're going to examine the hidden mechanics of this invisible habit. Not just what is happening to our attention, but why it's happening on a deep neurological level.
And I have to admit, as someone who considers themselves pretty aware of my habits, diving into the mechanics of how these devices are slowly, deliberately training our brains, it was genuinely shocking.
I completely understand that reaction.
It's one thing to say, oh, I have a bad habit of checking my email too much. It is entirely another to realize the device in my pocket is actively conditioning me using the exact same mechanisms as a casino.
That shock is completely validated by the behavioral science. The conditioning is invisible by design. It happens so incrementally, so smoothly, that you don't even notice the shift from being the user to being the used.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to really understand this invisible habit, we need to look at a perfectly relatable scenario from the source material. Let's talk about Rohan.
Ah, yes, Rohan's story.
Right. So Rohan is a college student. It's late at night. He's just finished writing a paper. And he decides he's just going to open his phone to check Instagram to unwind. Just for 5 minutes.
The famous last words of the modern era.
Yeah.
Just 5 minutes.
Right, just 5 minutes. But then the descent begins. He watches one reel, and the algorithm seamlessly, frictionlessly feeds him another reel. Then he clicks over to look at a meme.
And then the notifications start.
Exactly. While he's looking at the meme, a notification pops down from the top of the screen. He taps it. It leads him to a YouTube short. He is just surfing this endless, frictionless wave of micro-content. And suddenly he looks up at the clock. It is 1:47 a.m.
3 entire hours just completely gone, evaporated into the glow of the screen.
And the absolute worst part, the part that genuinely gave me chills because I have absolutely done this myself, he doesn't even remember what he watched.
Nothing. A total blank.
3 hours of human life vanished, leaving zero memory footprint behind. To me, this 5-minute trap feels exactly like walking into one of those massive warehouse-style supermarkets. You know the ones.
Oh, absolutely. The ones where you can never find the exit.
Yes. You walk in because you need exactly one single carton of milk, but the entire store is deliberately engineered against you. The milk is hidden at the very back. The aisles are a literal maze. The lighting, the music, the end cap displays is all designed to disorient you just enough so that an hour later you walk out with a completely full shopping cart, a lighter wallet, and absolutely no memory of how you even got to the checkout lane.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. The supermarket layout isn't an accident, and neither is the architecture of your favorite app. The app developers are the behavioral architects of that digital supermarket.
And they know exactly where to put the milk.
Exactly. They know where to put the milk to keep you walking down their infinite aisles. Which brings us to the underlying mechanics of why Rohan lost those 3 hours without realizing it. Because it wasn't a lack of willpower on his part. It was a triumph of design on the part of the platform.
So we're moving from the behavioral symptom, Rohan's lost hours, directly into the psychological root cause. These platforms aren't just passively presenting information. They're actively manipulating human psychology.
What's fascinating here is the specific mechanism they use. If you are familiar with behavioral psychology, you might know about B.F. Skinner and operant conditioning.
The guy with the pigeons, right?
Yes, the pigeons. Back in the mid-20th century, Skinner put pigeons in boxes with little levers. If the pigeon pecked the lever and got a food pellet every single time, it actually got bored. It would only peck when it was hungry.
Makes sense. It knows the food is always there.
Right. But if Skinner changed the rules so the pigeon only got food sometimes, a variable reward schedule, the pigeon would absolutely lose its mind pecking that lever over and over all day long.
Wait, let me stop you there. Are you saying that the pull to refresh feature on my feed is literally a digital Skinner box?
Precisely. From a neurological standpoint, the mechanism is identical. Every time you drag your thumb down that screen to refresh, your brain thinks, well, maybe something exciting is coming this time.
So it's the maybe that hooks us.
Yes. Maybe it's a hilarious video. Maybe it's an urgent message. Maybe it's like on a photo you just posted, you don't know what it will be or if there will be anything at all. It is the exact same psychological principle used in casino slot machines.
And that unpredictable maybe is the trap. It's the anticipation of the reward, not just the reward itself.
Yes, and this is where we really have to reevaluate how we think about dopamine. People casually refer to dopamine as the pleasure chemical, like it's the reward itself.
Right, like I eat a piece of chocolate, I get dopamine.
But neuroscientists know dopamine is actually the seeking molecule. It's the neuromodulator of anticipation, motivation, and craving. It drives you to seek out the reward. When you pull down to refresh, dopamine spikes in anticipation.
Oh, wow. So the spike happens before you even see the post.
Exactly. And when you get a funny video, your brain logs a very simple, very powerful equation. Phone equals pleasure.
Phone equals pleasure. It is so basic, but so devastatingly effective.
And because the reward is variable, meaning you don't strike gold every single time you swipe, just sometimes your brain creates a compulsion loop. The unpredictability is what keeps Rohan scrolling until 1:47 a.m.
He's just chasing that next hit.
His brain is endlessly chasing the next hit, completely overriding his working memory and his perception of time.
So what does this all mean for Rohan? Let's follow him into the next day. Because we know how this is happening internally with the compulsion loop and the variable rewards. But the problem isn't just about him losing 3 hours of sleep, as if time's just some abstract concept.
Right, there are tangible, real-world consequences.
Exactly. It's about what this invisible habit actively dismantles in the real world. So let's look at the 4 specific impacts detailed in the source, starting with sleep.
Let's look at the physiological fallout of that 1:47 a.m. scroll. Rohan finally turns off his phone and tries to sleep, but he can't. Because it's not just the mental stimulation that's keeping him awake, it's the screen itself fighting his biology.
The blue light issue, I know we hear about this constantly, but it goes so much deeper than just, screens are bad for sleep.
It's an evolutionary mismatch. Human eyes have specific receptors, melanopsin receptors, that are highly sensitive to blue wavelength light. For millions of years of human evolution, the only source of blue light was the sky during the day.
Oh, I see where this is going.
So when Rohan is staring at a brilliantly backlit screen at 1:30 in the morning, that blue light enters his eyes and sends a very clear, ancient biological signal directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in his brain.
And that signal is basically, wake up, the sun is shining.
Exactly. It says, the sun is up, it is high noon, stay awake.
So he is physically fighting his own evolutionary programming. His body is exhausted and wants to rest, but his eyes are chemically commanding his brain to suppress melatonin, the sleep hormone. No wonder he wakes up the next morning feeling totally wrecked.
Exactly. The melatonin suppression compounds his exhaustion. So Rohan drags himself out of bed, goes to class, and later sits down at his desk to read a textbook chapter for 30 minutes. But he finds it physically agonizing.
Right, he reads the same paragraph 4 times and absorbs absolutely nothing.
And this is where the focus deficit comes in. Because his brain has spent the entire previous night getting spiked with a new burst of dopamine every 15 seconds from a new video.
And now he's trying to read a textbook.
Right. Expecting his brain to suddenly shift to a low dopamine, high effort task, like reading a dense academic textbook, is like asking a sprinter to suddenly run a marathon in the mud.
That's such a great way to put it. The brain's reward baseline has been artificially spiked by the algorithm. When your baseline expectation for stimulation is that high, normal reality, like a textbook or a quiet room or just a slow conversation, feels incredibly, painfully boring by comparison.
Spot on. You aren't losing your ability to focus. You are actively training your focus to only engage with hyper-stimulating content.
Okay, so Rohan is exhausted. His baseline focus is destroyed, but he still needs to write an essay. So he sits at his laptop. He vows to be productive, but then his phone buzzes. He tells himself, I'll just check this text message for 2 minutes, then get right back to writing.
And magically 40 minutes just disappear. We see this productivity cost constantly.
It's a massive cost, and it comes down to the friction of task switching. Every time you break away from a deep, cognitively demanding task for a 2-minute check, you aren't just losing 2 minutes on the clock. You are fracturing a state of flow.
Yes. There's this concept called attention residue. When you switch from writing an essay to reading a text message, your brain doesn't instantly snap 100% of its processing power over to the new task.
It leaves a little piece behind.
Exactly. And when you switch back to the essay, a piece of your attention remains stuck on the text message you just read.
The human prefrontal cortex is not a computer processor. We can't just seamlessly multitask. We toggle. And that toggling requires immense metabolic energy, right?
Immense energy. Research shows it can take over 20 minutes to fully re-engage with a state of deep concentration after an interruption. So those 2 minutes checking a notification literally destroy 40 minutes of actual deep productive output.
It's a brutal domino effect. The nighttime scrolling wrecks the sleep, the ruined sleep wrecks the baseline focus, the fractured focus destroys the productivity, which brings us to the evening. And this is the fourth cost. The one about real-life connections.
This is the one that really hurts to look at.
It really does. Rohan gives up on studying and goes out to dinner with his friends. And he is sitting right across from his best friends, but his phone is on the table, and he keeps glancing at it. The tragic reality is that sometimes the people sitting right next to you feel less important than your notifications.
That is the ultimate cost of the invisible habit. The device is engineered to be the most compelling thing in your environment. It uses all that Skinner box psychology, all that dopamine manipulation to win the war for your attention against anything else.
Even the living, breathing human beings sharing a physical space with you. It feels like the phone isn't just taking our time, it's fracturing our ability to be present in our own lives.
We are physically sitting in the restaurant, but mentally we are pacing the aisles of the digital supermarket pulling the slot machine lever.
Exactly.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the math of this fractured presence is genuinely terrifying. I want you, listening right now, to imagine being at the end of your life. You are looking back at everything you've done, and someone hands you a ledger, an audit of how you spent your time on Earth.
Okay, I'm bracing myself.
And they tell you, you spent 9 years of your life scrolling on your phone.
Wait.
9 years.
9 years, not learning a new language, not creating art or building a business or mastering a craft, not traveling, not experiencing the world, not deepening relationships with the people you love, just scrolling.
Just looking at a screen.
Watching thousands of videos you won't even remember the next day. 9 entire years of a human life.
That is an entire chapter of a life. It's almost a decade. Imagine handing over a decade of your brief, precious time on this planet to a piece of glass in your pocket. It is deeply scary. Honestly, hearing that makes me want to throw my phone into a river and move to the woods.
It does have that effect.
Yeah.
But throwing the phone in the river isn't practical. As we established at the beginning, these devices are necessary tools for navigating modern society.
Yeah, I'd probably miss Google Maps on day one.
Exactly. The goal isn't to destroy the tool, but to break the invisible habit. We have to transition from being the used back to being the user, and that requires a shift in strategy. Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because my entire life, whenever I wanted to break a bad habit, I just tried to use willpower. I would tell myself, I'm just going to ignore my phone today. And it would fail miserably.
Because willpower isn't designed for that.
Right. The notes point out that willpower isn't a muscle that gets infinitely stronger the more you use it. It's more like a smartphone battery. Every time you have to resist looking at your phone, it's like having an app running in the background, draining your willpower battery until you finally cave in.
That is the perfect analogy. You cannot out-willpower a supercomputer algorithm designed by thousands of neuroscientists and engineers. Willpower is a finite, easily depleted resource.
Environmental design is constant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't fight complex brain chemistry with sheer mental force. You change your physical environment to remove the friction of resistance.
So how do we actually do that? The text gives us 4 simple steps. Step 1, it starts with cutting the digital tripwires. We have to turn off unnecessary notifications. Every single ping, buzz, and red dot is a behavioral hook.
It is the casino dinging its bells to remind you the slot machine is sitting right there.
By turning off those alerts, maybe leaving only phone calls from your immediate family, you stop the platform from initiating contact. The goal is to remove the hooks.
This is a crucial shift in power. You decide when to look at the phone, rather than the phone dictating when you look at it. You remove the external trigger, which stops the compulsion loop before it even starts.
Okay, so turning off notifications removes the digital hooks. But what about step 2, the physical presence of the device? I know a lot of behavioral experts suggest keeping your phone in an entirely different room while you work.
It's highly recommended.
And I have to push back on this a little bit. Is that actually realistic in 2026? My phone is my alarm clock. It's my two-factor authentication for logging into my work network. It's how my kid's school reaches me in an emergency. I can't just casually toss it in the kitchen while I work in the office.
That is a very valid pushback, and it's the reality of modern integration. But we have to understand why the physical distance matters, and then find a practical compromise. There are fascinating studies on cognitive capacity that look at the mere physical presence of a smartphone.
Just having it nearby.
Even if the phone is completely turned off and placed face down on the desk in front of you, it actively drains your cognitive bandwidth.
Just by being visible. Are you serious?
Yes, because part of your brain's processing power is actively engaged in the subconscious effort of not picking it up. Psychologists call it brain drain.
Oh, wow. So that background willpower app is constantly running.
Exactly. Just having the phone in your visual field requires you to run that resist the phone background app. It reduces your working memory and fluid intelligence. So, if you cannot put it in another room because of two-factor authentication, you must at least get it out of your visual field.
Put it in a desk drawer or in a bag behind you.
Yes, you must create a physical barrier so your brain isn't expending metabolic energy actively ignoring it.
That makes total sense. Out of sight literally means freeing up the mind. It is about creating boundaries. Which brings us to step 3, which also applies to how we structure our time. We need to create specific phone-free hours in our day to let our nervous systems recover.
This directly addresses the sleep disruption and the hyperstimulation we saw with Rohan. By establishing a hard boundary, say, no phones after 10 p.m., you cut off the blue light and the dopamine spikes.
Allowing your suprachiasmatic nucleus to recognize it's actually nighttime.
And naturally produce melatonin.
And doing it in the morning is just as critical. If you don't look at your phone for the first hour after waking up, you prevent your brain from immediately entering a state of reactive stress.
Right. You aren't waking up and instantly letting the world dictate your mood via emails and horrifying news headlines.
You start your day on your own terms. It leads to a much calmer brain.
Exactly. But there is a final vital piece to this environmental design. Step 4. When you remove a powerful addiction, you create a vacuum. Yes. If you just try to stop scrolling, but you don't fill that massive void of time with something meaningful, you will inevitably relapse purely out of boredom. The compulsion loop will pull you right back in.
You have to actively replace the digital junk food with real nourishment. Replace the scrolling with something better.
Yes. Engaging in physical activity, deep reading, learning an instrument, or just having a face-to-face conversation provides a different, much more sustainable type of neurological reward.
Real life is just so much more interesting than a feed.
It rebuilds that fractured presence. You aren't just running away from the phone, you are running toward a richer physical reality.
It's about remembering how to live in the physical world again. And that brings us to a really profound philosophical realization to wrap up this deep dive. It zooms all the way out from the neurobiology and the algorithms.
The big picture.
Yes, the big picture. It reminds us that smartphones are undeniably powerful, world-changing tools. But tools should serve you. They should not control you. A hammer doesn't dictate when you build a house. You pick it up when you need it, and you put it down when you are done.
The tool itself is entirely neutral. It is the invisible habit, the compulsion loop, that makes it destructive.
Right. So the vital question we all need to ask ourselves, the ultimate metric for our digital lives presented in the source text is this. The question is not how much time you spend on your phone, but is your phone helping you build the life you want or distracting you from it?
Because one small habit, repeated every single day, ultimately writes the story of your future. 9 years of scrolling doesn't happen all at once in a massive chunk.
No, it happens 5 minutes at a time.
It happens one midnight binge at a time. It happens in the tiny, unnoticed moments of friction.
Exactly. It is the sum of thousands of tiny unconscious choices. So as we close out today, We want to leave you with one final thought to mull over on your own. It builds directly on that casino slot machine analogy we've been unpacking today.
It's a powerful analogy to keep in mind.
It really is. The very next time you feel that familiar urge, that phantom itch in your pocket, and you find yourself reaching down or picking up your phone from the table, challenge yourself to pause, just for one single second. Notice the physical sensation of the device in your hand. Feel its weight. Feel the cold metal or the texture of the case. And in that one fleeting second of awareness, ask yourself honestly, are you reaching for a tool with a specific job in mind, or are you just instinctively looking for a lever to pull?
If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend who's learning English. We'll see you tomorrow with another easy conversation. Bye, everyone!